Zeke and the No Noise Challenge? Zeke Thompson was not the quiet type. In fact, if there were a prize for most words spoken before 9 a.m., he would have won it every single day. Zeke talked during roll call. He talked while tying his shoes. He even talked while chewing his breakfast, which his mom said should be illegal. At school, Zeke's chatter filled the classroom like popcorn in a microwave nonstop, and a little unpredictable. "Did you know cats can't taste sweet things?" He'd blurt during spelling. "Miss, I think I know what happens next," he'd interrupt during story time. "Hamsters would be terrible bus drivers," he'd add, unprovoked during maths. His classmates liked Zeke. He was funny, smart, and always had the best snack traits. But sometimes, they just wanted him to zip it. He'd finish their sentences, answer questions they hadn't asked yet, and make it impossible to hear themselves think. One day, after Zeke had interrupted for the third time before morning break, Miss Miles crouched beside his desk and said gently, "Zeke, your words are wonderful, but there's magic in quiet too." Zeke blinked. Magic? In quiet? He didn't say anything. For once, but he was definitely thinking. And that was a start. The next morning, Mr. Miles stood in front of the class with a sparkle in his eye and a mysterious golden envelope in his hand. "Today," he said, "we're doing something different. Something silent." The class leaned in. "It's called the No Noise Challenge. From the first bell to the last, your mission is simple. No talking, no whispering, no humming, no sound effects. Not even a sneeze that sounds suspiciously like a duck." Laughter rippled across the room except from Zeke, who was frozen mid-yawn. Mr. Miles held up a shiny, glittering badge shaped like an ear with wings. "The student who stays the quietest, the most focused, the most calm will earn this golden listener badge and a surprise reward." Zeke's jaw dropped. "A whole day without talking? That's..." Mr. Miles raised a finger. Zeke slapped both hands over his mouth. His eyes darted around. Everyone else was already zipping imaginary zippers over their lips and nodding excitedly. Zeke sank slowly into his chair, like a balloon deflating in slow motion. He loved surprises. He loved badges. He loved winning. But no talking, no sound effects, no "did you know" facts about bats and cheese. This was going to be the hardest thing he'd ever done. Mr. Miles handed out mini whiteboards and markers. "You can write, point, draw, mime, or smile," he said. "But once the first bell rings, it's silence mode." The bell rang. The challenge began. Immediately, the classroom transformed. No chattering, no chair squeaks from Wiggles, no random robot impressions from Zeke. It was oddly peaceful. Zeke's foot bounced under the desk. His pencil tapped. His brain felt like a fizzy drink trying not to fizz over. During reading time, he wanted to yell, "I've read this one!" The dragon turns into a sandwich. But instead, he bit his lip and doodled a sandwich dragon on his board. At snack time, he mimed banana to his friend Sam, who nodded and handed one over. During maths, he almost whispered, "Carry the one," but caught himself and turned it into a dramatic thumbs up. Mr. Miles gave him a small nod. At break, Zeke watched the other kids giggle silently. They played tag in total hush, mouths open wide but no sound coming out. Even Emily, who usually hummed when she ran, was completely quiet. Zeke sprinted quietly, waved wildly, and threw invisible sound waves into the sky. By lunchtime, he was buzzing. So many things to say. He hadn't spoken a single word, and somehow that made all his thoughts feel louder in his head. He wrote jokes on his whiteboard. He made finger puppets out of carrot sticks. He even mimed a giraffe riding a skateboard, which made 2 kids laugh so hard they nearly lost the challenge. But Zeke stayed quiet. Mr. Miles walked by and gave him a thumbs up. Zeke beamed. He still hadn't said a single word, and that made him feel strangely powerful, like he had a new kind of superpower. The power of holding it in, even if it was just for one day. By midday, Zeke was starting to feel full. Not from lunch, from silence. His head felt like it was stuffed with unsaid words. His cheeks ached from holding in reactions. His fingers were cramping from all the whiteboard scribbling. During maths, Mr. Miles wrote a riddle on the board. I am a number. Double me, add 6, divide by 2, subtract 3, and you'll get me again. What am I? Zeke's hand shot up instinct. He knew the answer. 7. 7. But then he froze. Midair. He looked around. Silent faces. Calm. Focused. He slowly pulled his hand back down like it was on a fishing line, then grabbed his whiteboard and scribbled 7 in giant letters, surrounding it with stars and exclamation marks. He held it up triumphantly, then sighed when no one even looked. Zeke nearly exploded. At lunch, things got worse. He unzipped his lunch bag, hoping for a cheese and pickle sandwich, his favorite. Instead, soggy lettuce and egg. His eyes widened in horror. He wanted to groan, to say, "Why, Mum? Why?" To warn the table, "It smells like science class." Instead, he jabbed at it dramatically with a carrot stick, miming a sandwich falling apart. Sam giggled. Zeke bowed like a tragic actor and pretended to faint, but still no talking. His stomach grumbled louder than he was allowed to. By story time, Zeke was in real trouble. Mr. Miles pulled out a familiar book, The Cat Who Wore a Cape. Zeke loved this book. He'd read it 20 times. He knew every twist, every meow, every ending. And as Mr. Miles read aloud, Zeke bounced in his seat, barely able to stay still. And just when everyone thought the cat had flown away forever, Zeke bit his lip. His hand twitched. He mouthed the words silently, bursting to shout. "He comes back disguised as a superhero pigeon." But he didn't. He held his knees. He stared at the ceiling. He quietly blew air into his cheeks and let it out in a slow, silent puff. The words wanted out. They were stacked in his brain like traffic. But still Zeke zipped it. Barely. Mr. Miles glanced over, smiling like he could feel the battle raging inside Zeke's body. By the end of story time, Zeke slumped in his seat like a deflated balloon. His fingers twitched, his eyes darted, his mouth opened and then closed again. He'd made it. Barely. Kind of. Almost. There were still 2 hours left, and Zeke was starting to wonder, was any badge worth this much holding in? He stared at his whiteboard and wrote in big, shaky letters, "This is the hardest thing I have ever done," and underlined it 4 times. Sam patted his back in sympathy. Zeke gave him a thumbs up without saying a word. By midday, Zeke felt like his brain might burst from all the things he wanted to say but couldn't. He bounced his leg under the desk, tapped his pencil, and silently mouthed words like a goldfish trying to gossip. But something had changed. With no way to talk, Zeke's ears and eyes had no choice but to work overtime. During quiet reading time, Zeke looked up from his book and heard something strange. Birds. Actual birds chirping right outside the classroom window. They were singing like they were part of a secret concert just for him. Zeke blinked. Have they always been that loud? He wondered silently. Then he glanced at Miatha girl, who rarely said a word in class. She was bent over her notebook, sketching something with careful strokes. Zeke leaned a little to the side, curious. His eyes widened. She wasn't doodling stick people like he did. She was drawing a whole forest, with twisting trees and a tiny fox hiding in the leaves. It looked like something out of a storybook. Zeke had sat 2 desks from Mia all year, and he'd never seen her draw. Had she always been doing this while he was busy talking? At lunch, Zeke spotted his best friend Lily sitting at the far end of the table. She usually laughed at his jokes and shared her crisps. But today, she stared at her sandwich like it had said something rude. Her shoulders slumped. Her eyes looked heavy. Zeke tilted his head. Why hadn't he noticed before? He would have cracked a joke or poked her arm to make her giggle if it weren't for the challenge. But now, in the silence, he just saw her. Really saw her. Something fluttered in his chest. Maybe it was empathy. Maybe it was just gas from the school lasagna. Either way, it felt important. The silence that had felt like a prison this morning was beginning to feel different now. Peaceful, soft, kind of magical. Zeke sat still for the first time all day, just breathing and listening. The classroom buzzed with tiny sounds, the scratch of pencils, the flipping of pages, even the soft tap of Miss Willow's shoes as she walked past. For the first time, Zeke didn't feel like he had to fill the silence. He was starting to understand what Mr. Miles had said. There's magic in quiet too, Zeke. And maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to find it. The final bell rang. Zeke sat at his desk, his lips pressed tight, his knees bouncing with excitement. He had done it almost. He might have let out a tiny squeak during art when he knocked over the glue stick, but other than that, silence. Mr. Miles clapped his hands gently. Well done, everyone. Today's no-noise challenge wasn't easy, but I'm proud of each of you for trying. He smiled around the room. Now, who managed to stay silent all day? A few hesitant hands floated up. Zeke's was the last to rise, slow and unsure but proud. His cheeks flushed. Mr. Miles raised an eyebrow. Zeke? Really? Zeke nodded once, tight-lipped, his eyes wide and sparkling. Well then, Mr. Miles said, pulling something from behind his desk. This year's Golden Listener badge goes to Zeke! The class clapped some surprised, some giggling, but all genuinely happy for him. Zeke stood, beaming as Mr. Miles pinned the golden badge on his shirt. It shimmered in the light like it had been waiting for him. And your surprise, Mr. Miles continued, handing him a small notebook with a lightning bolt on the cover, is this, Zeke's Thoughts. A place to write all those brilliant ideas you sometimes shout out mid-lesson? Zeke stared at the notebook. So, I can say things in here? Like my thoughts, but quiet? Exactly, Mr. Miles smiled. Sometimes the best ideas come when we pause long enough to notice them. Zeke hugged the notebook to his chest. Cool. That night at home, he didn't shout across the dinner table. Instead, he opened Zeke's Thoughts and scribbled, Today I heard birds, and saw Mia's drawing, and Lily was sad, and I was quiet, but I still mattered. He looked at the page. It felt good. The notebook didn't interrupt. It just listened. Moral lesson. You don't always need to be the loudest voice in the room to be heard. Sometimes being quiet helps you see the world and the people in it more clearly. Listening is a superpower too. Follow for more quiet adventures and thoughtful tales. SciBU. Subscribe for more stories that help kids grow kinder, braver, and better listeners.